Like, okay, the first two things look good, but then the fourth and the fifth don't look good. So that's, yeah, I don't know what to do about that. But I think to me, the JSON serializer option as it's proposed right now, where you put obsolete on ignore null values, seems reasonable. But maybe we should wait until we actually talk to James and get more clarity on, is the behavior that he has really something that people wanted on both sides, serialization and deserialization, or is it just, yeah, that's just how I implemented it and people didn't yell loud enough, right? And then maybe our behavior makes sense of obsoleting it, or maybe it doesn't, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Does that help?
Yeah, that's fine. I can reach out to James and probably just take the rest of this over email. But the question I had about the custom converters handling now, that's the one I wanted to revisit again.
Where do you have that linked? Is that
So that's just below this default values per property. The next API.
I don't see it.
It's just it's on the screen right now.
Oh, sorry, I stopped looking at the screen because
apparently my router lost power.
it suddenly disappeared. I'm like, what happened?
Then we got to play the Witch Breaker Just Popped game.
Yeah, that's fine. So today.
So just a quick little background on this thing is that we talked about it a couple weeks ago, but we decided when we're doing the serializer that that the serializer will handle null automatically for you on deserialization and serialization, so you don't have to put it, like one line of code at the beginning of your custom converter that says if null or if token type equals null, do this. Plus we found, by avoiding setting or calling the converters faster, so it had kind of some easy to write converter thinking, and then also some perf thinking. But in general, we never thought that people that would want to handle their own null for reference types. For value types, yes, because things like JSON element, for example, a null or JSON document, a null coming in or going out needs to be written as an empty object and not a null. So anyway, so we encountered a couple scenarios, including Cosmos, that said, hey, when we see null, we want to do something special, and they're blocked by this right now.
Yeah, I think this one's fine. It specifically is null reference values and the null keyword, and it's opt-in does make sense because many people may already be blindly talking about properties on the object they get because it was never null before. Presumably, you need to make a change to your nullable annotation for the callbacks that are involved to say that the object returned now is allowed to be null, and the object that you'll receive on serialize may also be null.
For the serialized side, right now it's allowed to be null. I'll recheck for the deserialized when the return value.
Yeah, and were there notes on the enum that I need to capture, or did you just take over for me when I disappeared, Emo?
I did not. I was a bad boy. Because I kind of thought you would come back.
Well, I'm back now. So on the last I heard on this one, we were discussing whether win default needed to be renamed or 3 different values.
Yeah, I think the conclusion there was we want to talk to James to make sure that we understand the behavior that he has and whether that's intentional, and then based on that we decide what to do.
Okay, so we're deferring the JSON ignore condition part.
Yes, and I mean same with the beginning, right? Whether we obsolete ignore null values or not, right? Because it seems like that's this that's a general problem of like, how many people and under what circumstances do they want to avoid calling the setter, right? If that's a real scenario we want to enable, then we should make sure that we can do it in the same way.
Okay.
Because also sprinkling your code with JSON ignore attributes is probably also not what you want, right? At that point, you either want to write a custom converter or you want to have a global property to turn it on, right?
So for the T for the converter read methods, there's no generic constraint, so we can't say that the T is the return type is nullable.
That's the maybe null attribute, I think. Which is if the T is a reference type, it might be null.
I see.
Yeah, it's one of them. I can never remember.
How does that work with nullable of T since that's not a reference type?
It doesn't apply.
Okay. Because the serializers loaded with is all over the place, where T can need to be a struct or reference type. So we always seem to be using the bang operator quite a bit, because compiler doesn't know what to do, or the analyzers don't know what to do.
I guess we'll find the right one and apply it.
All right. So is there anything left in this issue that we didn't talk about?
No, that was it. Some other scenarios that are not pressing for right now, so I can come back with those.
Okay, so I'll take the note for... All right, but we were good with serialized default values. And I'm going to go ahead and leave the thing suggesting ignore null values as being marked obsolete so that I have a place to put the editor browsable note.
Nice.
Okay, so that, go to the bottom, paste, preview.
Okay.
Behold some notes.
Yeah. So the issue for the handle null is let me get the number so that issue can be approved in isolation. So that's 34439. Or I can do it offline if you want.
Okay. Yeah, I can move that part of the note to there. But all right, do these notes look like they captured what we talked about?
Yes, from my point of view.
Okay. And delete this part because it's a different issue. Comment. And then, is this needs work because we deferred things? It's like partial approved.
Well, so for logistics, when we hear back from James, do we want to bring this up again, or should we just make a call once we get that information? I mean, you can do it through email, or we can do this again.
Because really, if there's it makes sense to have some opt-in to ignore default calling the setters for default values, even including custom defaults on deserialize, then we're really going to need to talk about what that enum looks like.
Okay, so if James comes back and says, hey, there's not really any good scenarios except for maybe perf, then we'll just we can probably handle this through email then.
Right. All right. I'll call it needs work, and if we can get it dealt with an email, then we can get it dealt with an email. Okay. So we have 3 minutes.
Yeah, I feel like that's probably not enough. Like, what happened to the networking issue that I added to the meeting agenda? Did we already handle it?
We approved it before you joined.
Cool. So then we're literally done with the things that we have on the list.
Yeah. And Laomi's was the first extended one. So the one thing that I want to do while we still have humans in the room is we talked about this on email, but I'd like to just get consensus in the thing. We can talk about the rest of the ASN proposal later, but since it affects ASN and the upcoming CBOR proposal, I want to talk about, are we okay with system.formats for these sort of wire format protocols namespace container? Since I'm running the meeting, Emo can't put it off anymore.
What assembly would this be in?
So for the ASN1, it would be in system formats ASN1.
As its own assembly, not just a namespace. Okay.
Its own total package.
Right.
And I'm probably going to do some IL merge rewrite to make an internal copy so we don't have to share exchange types with the NuGet package, and we can use it at a lower level inside. But that's a internal detail. For CBOR, we wouldn't have internal usage, so it would be in system format CBOR. But really, does anybody have an objection to the word formats for any future serialization format work we do? Like, if we already had this, then I think JSON would have already gone under system formats JSON. And if we did this in the beginning, it would be, system formats ASN1, CBOR, JSON, XML, because it's all the different ways that things are constructed on the wire and how you read them and write them.
So and the idea is you wouldn't have system formatters, it would be system formats. Because this is a formatter of sort. Well, it's not taking arbitrary objects, I guess that's the difference.
Right, so if we added a serializer for ASN1, then it would be using what we did for JSON, system formats ASN1 serialization. So you're talking about ASN1 data, and now do you want to serialize it, or in this case it's the readers and writers and primitives you need in order to talk about the thing.
Sure.
CBOR will have a similar thing. XML has, attributes and elements, and so.
Yeah, that makes sense. You're drawing the distinction between a formatter as something that can read and write a payload format, as opposed to a serializer, which can hydrate and dehydrate objects.
Yeah. And so then it would be for everything that is self-contained to a particular wire or file format that it would be system.formats.that particular format, and then move on with life. And formats will be an empty container. It's just a scoping name.
I'm leaning ever so slightly toward formatters instead of formats, but it's such a weak lean that I forget I said anything.
Yeah, to me, formatter really is the object hydrator and dehydrator. So since some of these won't have one of those, I feel like that's a misnomer.
Yeah, I think formats is more like a play on data formats, right? Which formatter really sounds like a serializer.
Sure.
Okay.
This is a good namespace, I think.
Yeah, I'm not gung ho about the namespace, but it's also not like I have 5 better options.
Right.
I can't think of anything better.
Yeah, I do think it makes sense to keep the word binary out of it, because now it gives us a better place for any other text-based things in the future. And JSON already got JSON got system text JSON. XML has system XML plus every variant that we've ever made up for it. But I think that this does give us a good place going forward, and it applies to whether it's text or binary or hybrid. We have a good place to put things.
So what kinds of things did you foresee going in here in the future? You mentioned CBOR. What else?
So CBOR we're actively working on. If we moved protobuf into whether it's we do it or it's a package that through our local through a Microsoft owned project we worked on, then it would make sense for system formats protobuf, right? Like if you have a file that was written in the protobuf wire format, how do you read it? Well, protobuf reader, go read a thing. So I think anything that is a file, like we could move UXML to here if we cared.
Sure. Yeah, I'm just trying to brainstorm like 3, 4, 5 years down the road. What other things would we have here realistically? So,
yeah.
Okay.
Essentially anything that gets labeled as a file format or a wire transport protocol would be for the messaging aspects. The protocol aspect would be somewhere else, using protocol as a series of exchanges as opposed to a series of content of a message.
Sure. So like HTTP would not be here, for instance, because it's more of a protocol than a format. Sure.
Right, but HTTP2 frames could be formats, especially if it felt like they were being used somewhere outside the protocol.
Fair.
And it looks like we've had a reduction in the number of people who are here, so we'll say that the namespace is approved by everybody who stuck around.
Yes, this is really why I stuck around.
Yeah, and so Emo, we probably do want to talk about on this in a meeting this level of rewrite that I did here of the static conversion. So we will want to come back to also added a new exception.
You naughty boy. Now we have to set up a meeting for this.
Right. Well, I got rid of cryptographic exception because we agreed it didn't make any sense, and then no existing one was a really good one, so I had to make one up. But
fine, be like that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I did try to group everything logically, so it's like, the read integer replacements are all together.
How much time will this take? What do you think? Full 2 hours or?
Certainly we could make it be a gas, but if we wanted to just drive things forward, since we talked about it in concept, we're just signing off on the execution of consider. I'd say an hour should be overly generous.
Yeah, then how about we just tackle that next Thursday?
Yeah.
If I have the next Thursday, I think we still have the next Thursday, right? Yes, we do have the next Thursday. And then I can't do the Thursday after because there's a community stand-up, but I can set up one for us. So somebody else can do that. I think we probably need Thursdays for the foreseeable future, so we'll just extend the series on Thursdays.
Okay. All right. Well, then that concludes this meeting, which, when I glanced at YouTube, looks like there was a placeholder meeting that when I started streaming, it didn't join. It made a new meeting, so apologies to anybody who sat in the wrong meeting for a while. We're trying new tech, and sometimes we get confused by it.
Yeah, you just made my life harder because my tool that generates the notes can only handle 1 video right now, and now we have 2 videos. Now I have to change my tool to collapse them down.
Isn't technology fun?
Yeah, especially automation, right? Because you do automation so you don't have to do things over and over again, but then you have to tweak the automation forever. So there's that. All good. It was great.
All right. Thanks, everyone who joined us, and we'll see you next time.